First contact in the dark. The titanium walls of the research station couldn't keep out the whispers. Every scientist who passed Lily Thompson's lab peered through the reinforced windows, their faces a mixture of curiosity and concern. At 26, she was the youngest xenobiologist ever to lead her own deep space research project, but today's discovery had everyone questioning her judgment. The creature lay unconscious on her examination table, its iridescent scales reflecting the harsh laboratory lights. 15 feet of raw power and primal grace, the Crother was everything the stories said, and more. Its reputation preceded it across 12 galaxies, the apex predator that even apex predators feared. Lily adjusted her glasses, her hand steady despite the gravity of the situation. The creature's breathing was labored, its scales dulled by what appeared to be a systemic infection. Her scanners revealed internal damage unlike anything she'd ever encountered in her years of studying alien physiology. "Dr. Thompson, the containment team is standing by." The voice crackled through her comm unit. "Should we proceed with termination protocols?" "Negative." Lily's voice was firm, her green eyes fixed on the magnificent being before her. "This is a unique opportunity for interspecies understanding. I'm proceeding with treatment." "With all due respect, Doctor, that's a Class X predator. There are only 3 documented cases of human survival after encounter." "Then we'll make this the 4th. Lily switched off her comm, knowing she'd face consequences later. But she couldn't let fear dictate her actions, not when she was so close to understanding something extraordinary. The Crother had appeared in the station's orbit 12 hours ago, its biological signature barely registering on their scanners. It had made no aggressive moves, instead broadcasting something unprecedented, a distress signal. When Lily took a shuttle out to investigate, she found the creature struggling against an invisible enemy, its powerful body racked with spasms. Now, as she prepared her instruments, Lily reflected on the years of isolation that had led to this moment. While other scientists sought glory in weapons development or terraforming, she had devoted herself to understanding the galaxy's most misunderstood creatures. Her colleagues called her obsessed, reckless, even naive. But Lily saw something they missed, the delicate balance of life that connected even the most fearsome beings. The Crother's eyes suddenly snapped open, revealing pupils that shimmered like liquid mercury. Lily froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. The creature's gaze fixed on her, and in that moment, she felt the weight of eons pressing against her consciousness. Instead of attacking, the Crother projected a series of complex biochemical signatures, a form of communication she had theorized but never witnessed. Lily's implanted translator worked furiously to decode the patterns. "You, help." The translation was crude, but the meaning was clear. "Yes," Lily replied, both verbally and through her own carefully modulated biochemical response. "I want to help you." The Crother's body tensed, and Lily prepared herself for anything. But what came next shattered every preconception about the species. It lowered its head, exposing a vulnerable spot at the base of its skull, a gesture of trust that defied everything known about these creatures. Lily's scanners revealed the problem. A microscopic parasite, artificial in nature, specifically engineered to target the Crother's unique biology. Someone had turned this proud creature into a weapon against its own kind. As she began her work, Lily spoke softly to the Crother, explaining each procedure. The creature remained still, its mercury eyes tracking her movements. Through their rudimentary chemical communication, she learned that it had traveled across 3 galaxies seeking help, driven by an instinct that led it to her station. Hours passed as Lily worked, her fingers flying over holographic displays as she synthesized countermeasures. The station's other scientists watched from a safe distance, their fears gradually giving way to amazement as they witnessed something unprecedented: cooperation between humanity and the galaxy's most feared predator. When the first phase of treatment was complete, the Crother rose slowly from the examination table, Its scales had regained their luminescence, though full healing would take time. It towered over Lily, who stood her ground, trusting in the connection they had formed. The creature's next transmission came through with surprising clarity. Others suffer. Many others. Lily understood the implications immediately. This wasn't just about healing one creature. It was about preventing an extinction event that could unbalance entire ecosystems across multiple galaxies. She reached out, placing her hand against the Crother's scales. The warmth beneath her palm pulsed in rhythm with her own heartbeat. "Then we'll help them too," she promised, knowing that this moment would change not just her life, but the course of interspecies relations forever. The Crother's response was simple but profound. Trust given. Trust earned. As the creature settled back to rest and heal, Lily began documenting everything she had learned. Outside her lab, the whispers continued, but they had changed tone. Fear was giving way to wonder, and in that transformation, Lily saw the first steps toward a new understanding between species. She knew the real work was just beginning. Somewhere out there, someone had engineered a weapon capable of destroying one of the galaxy's most powerful species. Finding them, stopping them, and saving the Crother would require everything she had learned in her years of isolated study. But for the first time in her life, Lily Thompson wasn't alone in her mission. She had found an ally in the most unlikely of places, and together they would reshape the galaxy's understanding of predator and prey, of fear and trust, of healing and hope. Understanding the beast. The following days transformed Lily's lab into something between a hospital ward and a cultural exchange center. The Crother, whom she had begun calling Vex after its biochemical signature pattern, proved to be far more than a simple predator. As its strength returned, it shared knowledge that revolutionized Lily's understanding of galactic ecology. Through their growing chemical dialogue, Vex revealed that the Crother weren't just hunters, they were regulators of entire ecosystems. Their presence maintained delicate balances across star systems, preventing any single species from dominating and destroying planetary biospheres. The parasitic infection wasn't just an attack on their species, it was an assault on the galaxy's biological stability. "Show more," Lily requested one morning, her sensors ready to record. Vex responded by releasing a complex series of biochemical markers that painted a vivid picture of their role. The holographic display transformed the data into a stunning visualization of interconnected species across multiple star systems. The station's director, Reynolds, watched from the observation deck, his initial skepticism giving way to reluctant fascination. "Thompson, the board wants daily reports on everything you learn. This could change every protocol we have about Class X species." Lily barely heard him. She was absorbed in the data streaming from Vex's biochemical communications. The Crother had evolved alongside the first spacefaring species, developing abilities that defied conventional biology. They could traverse vast distances through a form of biological fold space travel, their bodies naturally generating the energy fields necessary for faster-than-light movement. But it was their role as healers that stunned her most. The very presence of a healthy Crother could stabilize failing ecosystems, their biochemistry releasing compounds that promoted life and balance. The species humanity had feared as destroyers were actually preservers of the highest order. "Your kind misunderstands," Vex transmitted. "Fear blinds. Balance requires both creation and destruction." Lily nodded, recording everything. The parasites. They're disrupting this balance. Vex's mercury eyes clouded with what she now recognized as distress. The creature projected images of dying worlds, ecosystems collapsing as infected Crother fled their traditional territories. Without their influence, aggressive species were overwhelming gentler ones, leading to cascade failures across entire planets. The lab door slid open, and Dr. Wei from Xenopathology entered, her usual confidence tempered by obvious nervousness around Vex. "We've analyzed the parasite samples. They're like nothing we've ever seen. Quantum-level programming merged with biological components. Someone put years of advanced research into creating these." Lily felt Vex's anxiety spike through their biochemical link. The creature's scales rippled with patterns she now recognized as deep concern. "Show us everything," she encouraged, placing a steady hand on Vex's flank. The next hour revealed a horrifying truth. The parasites weren't just attacking the Crother's bodies. They were attempting to rewrite their basic nature, turning the guardians of balance into engines of pure destruction. Some infected individuals had already succumbed, becoming the monsters that galactic legends had always painted them as. "How many?" Lily asked, dreading the answer. Vex's response came in waves of sorrow. "Half our number. More falling. Soon, too few for balance." Dr. Way's fingers flew over her datapad. "If these readings are correct, we're looking at an engineered extinction event. Someone wants the Crother gone badly enough to risk destabilizing multiple galaxies." Lily felt the weight of this knowledge settle over her. She had started this project hoping to understand one creature, but now she faced a crisis that threatened the foundations of galactic life itself. Her years of isolated study, which had once seemed like a burden, had prepared her for exactly this moment. "We need to understand more," she decided. "Vex, would you be willing to undergo a deep scan? It might help us develop a cure." The creature's response was immediate. "Trust given freely now. Do what must be done." As Lily prepared the scanning equipment, she noticed something remarkable. The other scientists in the lab had stopped maintaining their fearful distance from Vex. Instead, they moved around the creature with growing comfort, some even reaching out to touch its scales in greeting. The Crother's natural ability to promote balance was working even here, breaking down barriers of fear and mistrust. The deep scan revealed both horror and hope. The parasites had spread throughout Vex's system, but they hadn't fully penetrated the creature's core biology. Something was protecting it, an ancient defense mechanism that had helped the species survive countless challenges over millions of years. "Look at this," Dr. Y pointed to a particular data stream. "The parasites are actually having trouble adapting to Earth-based scanning frequencies. Whatever civilization created them, they weren't expecting human intervention." Lily felt a spark of excitement. That's it. They designed these weapons assuming only advanced species would try to help the Crother. Nobody expected a relatively primitive race like humans to get involved. Vex's biochemical signature pulsed with what Lily now recognized as approval. Simple solutions, often best solutions. As the day drew to a close, Lily found herself sitting beside Vex, both of them watching the stars through the lab's observation window. The creature's presence had become comforting, its powerful form a reminder that strength and gentleness could coexist. "Why did you come to us?" she asked, curious about what had drawn the creature to a human research station. Vex's answer came in layers of meaning. "Saw light in darkness. Your kind, young, but seeing, not bound by old fears, new paths possible." Lily smiled, understanding the profound compliment in those words. Humanity's very inexperience, their willingness to question established truths, might be exactly what the galaxy needed right now. But as she reviewed the day's data, a troubling thought emerged. The parasites were evolving, adapting to their hosts. They had months at most before the infection became irreversible. Somewhere out there, the architects of this biological warfare were watching their plan unfold. Finding them, stopping them, and saving the Crother would require more than just scientific knowledge. It would take everything humanity had learned about perseverance, innovation, and courage. Lily looked at Vex, seeing not a feared predator, but a partner in what might be the most important mission in human history. "Tomorrow," she said, both aloud and through their chemical link, "we start planning our counterattack." Vex's scales shimmered in response, a display of determination that needed no translation. The hunt begins. The research station's hangar bay buzzed with nervous energy as Lily supervised the loading of equipment onto her modified research vessel. She had named it the Helix, a tribute to the DNA structures she'd spent her life studying. Now, those studies would be put to the ultimate test. Director Reynolds stood at the hangar's entrance, his expression a mixture of concern and resignation. "The board thinks I'm insane for authorizing this mission. A human scientist and a Crother searching for a cure across hostile space. It sounds like the beginning of a bad joke." "Sometimes the best science sounds ridiculous at first," Lily replied, checking her supplies one final time. "Besides, we don't have a choice. The parasitic infection is spreading faster than we predicted." Vex waited near the ship, its massive form drawing nervous glances from the station's crew. The creature had recovered much of its strength, but time was working against them. More distress signals arrived daily from across the galaxy, other Crothers succumbing to the engineered plague. Dr. Way approached with a final data packet. "I've mapped the infection's spread pattern. Whatever's causing this started in the Carina Nebula sector. That's your best bet for finding answers." Lily nodded, knowing what her colleague wasn't saying. The Carina Nebula was notorious for its lawless territories and hostile species. Many considered it a graveyard for curious scientists. As she boarded the Helix with Vex, Lily felt the weight of their mission. They weren't just seeking the cure. They were racing against the collapse of entire ecosystems. The ship's interior had been modified to accommodate her companion's size, though watching a Crother delicately maneuver through human-sized spaces was a sight that would take getting used to. The journey to the Carina Nebula would take 3 days, even with Vex's ability to guide them through fold space. As they cleared the station's gravitational field, Lily activated her research protocols. Every moment was an opportunity to learn more about her extraordinary companion. "Your kind fears this region," Vex transmitted, its biochemical signatures tinted with concern. "We fear a lot of things," Lily responded, both verbally and chemically. "It doesn't stop us from doing what's necessary." Their first challenge came sooner than expected. Barely a day into their journey, the Helix's sensors detected a squadron of ships emerging from fold space. Their configuration was unmistakable. Rasni hunters, a species known for their hatred of the Crother. "They must have detected your biological signature," Lily said, her fingers flying over the controls. "Can you mask it?" Vex's response was immediate. "Too late. They hunt with purpose." The Rasni ships launched their attack without warning or negotiation. Energy beams sliced through space, forcing Lily to execute evasive maneuvers she hadn't known she was capable of. The Helix shuddered under the assault. "They believe all Crother must die," Vex transmitted. "Old hatred, deeper than current plague." Lily understood. The Rasni represented everything they were fighting against, fear and prejudice that had festered across millennia. But she hadn't come this far to be stopped by ancient grudges. "I have an idea," she said, pulling up the ship's biochemical synthesizer controls. "Can you project your balancing field through the ship's external vents?" Vex understood immediately. The Crother's natural ability to promote biological harmony might work on a psychological level too. As energy beams continued to strafe their shields, Vex released a carefully modulated burst of biochemical signals. The effect was subtle but profound. The Rasni attacks became less coordinated, their ships moving with decreasing aggression. Lily seized the moment to open a communication channel. "Rasni vessels, this is Dr. Lily Thompson of Earth. We're on a medical mission to prevent ecosystem collapse across multiple sectors. The Crother aboard is helping us save lives, including yours." For a tense moment, there was no response. Then a harsh voice cut through the channel. "Human, you don't understand what these creatures are capable of." "Actually, I do," Lily replied, her voice steady. "They're capable of maintaining the balance that keeps all of us alive. Right now, someone is trying to destroy that balance. Help us or don't, but don't stand in our way." Whether it was her words or Vex's biochemical influence, the Rasni ships gradually backed off. As they retreated into fold space, Lily released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Vex's mercury eyes fixed on her with what she now recognized as admiration. "Your kind, surprising. Turn enemies to allies with words. Sometimes understanding is the best weapon," Lily replied, though she knew not all their encounters would end so peacefully. As they continued their journey, Lily analyzed data from the Rasni encounter. Their ships had carried traces of the same quantum biological signatures as the parasites. They weren't the source of the plague, but they might have unwittingly transported it. The Carina Nebula loomed ahead, its vast clouds of gas and dust concealing countless dangers. Somewhere in that celestial maze, someone was orchestrating the destruction of one of the galaxy's most important species. Finding them would require all of Lily's scientific knowledge and Vex's ancient wisdom. Their next challenge appeared on the sensors, a massive debris field of ancient ships and stations, the perfect place for someone to hide a biological weapons facility, and the perfect place for an ambush. "We're being watched," Vex transmitted, its scales shifting in patterns of warning. Lily nodded, accessing the ship's advanced scanning systems. "Let them watch. We're not here to fight. We're here to save lives, whether they like it or not." As the helix moved deeper into the debris field, Lily reflected on how far she'd come from her isolated lab work. She had spent years studying the galaxy's most dangerous creatures, but now she was working alongside one to prevent a catastrophe. The ship's sensors picked up another signal, a distress call from an infected crother, its biochemical signature deteriorating rapidly. Lily looked at Vex, seeing her own determination reflected in those mercury eyes. "Ready to make history?" she asked. Vex's response resonated through their shared connection, ready to restore balance. Together, human and crother, they prepared to face whatever waited for them in the heart of the nebula. The hunt for a cure had begun, and with it, the chance to bridge the gap between fear and understanding. Breaking the curse. The distress signal led them to a sight that made Lily's blood run cold. A massive crother drifted in the debris field, its once magnificent scales dulled to a sickly gray. Unlike Vex, this creature had succumbed to the parasite's influence. Its mercury eyes had turned black, reflecting nothing but primal rage. "Too far gone," Vex transmitted, waves of sorrow washing through their biochemical link. "Mind lost to darkness." But Lily wasn't ready to give up. She guided the helix closer, her sensors recording everything. The infected crother's biochemistry was dramatically altered, yet something in its core DNA remained unchanged. A kernel of its true nature, preserved despite the parasite's best efforts. "Look," she pointed to a particular data stream. "The infection is nearly complete, but it hasn't touched this section of genetic code. It's like there's a backup system." Before Vex could respond, the infected crother attacked. Its massive form slammed into the helix, sending them spinning through the debris field. Lily's hands flew over the controls, barely keeping them from colliding with a massive chunk of ancient station. "We need to get a tissue sample," she said, already formulating a plan. That preserved genetic material might be the key to creating a cure. Vex's response was immediate, dangerous, but necessary. They worked together with practiced efficiency, Lily positioning the ship while Vex used its natural abilities to try and calm its infected kin. The helix's external sampling arm extended, reaching for the raging creature. Suddenly, new signals appeared on their sensors. 3 ships emerged from the debris field, their design unlike anything Lily had seen before. They were biological in nature, their hulls seeming to pulse with artificial life. At last, a voice transmitted across all frequencies. We wondered what was interfering with our work. Lily felt a chill run down her spine. "You created the parasites." "Created? No, Doctor. We perfected them." The voice was calm, almost academic. "The crother have maintained their precious balance for too long. The galaxy needs to evolve, and evolution requires chaos." Through their link, Lily felt Vex's anger and understanding. These weren't simple villains, they were zealots who believed they were serving a greater purpose. "You're wrong," Lily transmitted back. "Evolution doesn't require destruction. It requires adaptation, cooperation. The crother don't prevent evolution, they guide it." The enemy ships began to move, herding them toward the infected Crother. Such a human perspective. Your species is young, still believing in fairy tales of harmony. The galaxy is fire and fury, Doctor. We're simply letting it burn properly. But Lily had spent her life studying the intricate dance of life across the cosmos. She knew better. While their attackers monologued, she was analyzing their ship's biological components. They shared characteristics with the parasites, the same quantum biological signatures. Vex, she transmitted privately through their chemical link. Their ships, they're vulnerable to your balancing field, but we'll need to get closer. The Crother understood immediately. As the enemy ships closed in, Vex began to gather its energy. The air in the helix crackled with biological potential. You have a choice. Lily broadcast to their attackers. Help us restore balance, or become part of the chaos you worship. Their response was predictable, a barrage of energy weapons and biological attacks. But Lily had positioned them perfectly. As the assault began, Vex released its accumulated power. The effect was devastating. The balancing field tore through the enemy ship's biological components, disrupting their artificial evolution. Systems failed as natural order reasserted itself. At the same time, the field reached the infected Crother, momentarily breaking through its parasitic haze. Lily didn't waste the opportunity. The helix's sampling arm shot out, collecting the precious genetic material they needed. Her screens filled with data, pure, uninfected Crother DNA, preserved despite everything. The enemy ships retreated, their biological systems in chaos. But they had learned something crucial. The parasites weren't invincible. They could be defeated by the very balance they sought to destroy. Hours later, in the Helix's lab, Lily worked feverishly to understand what they had discovered. The preserved genetic material was like a backup drive, containing the essence of what made the Crother guardians rather than destroyers. Your kind evolved this protection, she said to Vex, amazed. You've been fighting attempts to corrupt you for millions of years. Balance always finds way, Vex transmitted, but never before had human help. Lily smiled, understanding the compliment. Humans weren't bound by the same ancient assumptions that plagued older species. They could see solutions where others saw only problems. Working together, they began to craft a cure. It wasn't just about killing the parasites. It was about reinforcing the Crother's natural role as guardians of balance. Lily's human perspective combined with Vex's ancient knowledge created something entirely new. As the cure took shape in her synthesizers, Lily thought about the enemies they had faced. They'll try to stop us from distributing this. Let them try, Vex transmitted, its mercury eyes gleaming with determination. Balance cannot be stopped, only delayed. The cure would need to be tested, refined, and distributed across vast distances. But they had done what many thought impossible. They had found a way to save the Crother, and with them, the delicate balance of life itself. Looking at her screens filled with promising data, Lily felt a deep sense of validation. Her years of isolated study, her fascination with the galaxy's most feared creatures, had led to this moment. She wasn't just healing one species, she was helping to heal the galaxy itself. Ready for the next phase? She asked Vex, already knowing the answer. The Crother's response flowed through their link, strong and clear. Ready to restore harmony. Together. Guardians of balance. The next 3 weeks transformed the galaxy in ways no one could have predicted. From the Helix's laboratory, Lily and Vex coordinated a mission of healing that crossed traditional boundaries of species and space. The cure they had developed wasn't just a medical treatment. It was becoming a symbol of what was possible when fear gave way to understanding. They started with the infected Crother they had encountered in the debris field. Administering the cure required both precision and courage, but the results were extraordinary. The creature's scales gradually regained their luster, its eyes clearing from black back to mercury. Each success strengthened their resolve. Watch, Lily said, analyzing the data from their latest treatment. The cure isn't just eliminating the parasites, it's strengthening the natural balancing abilities of the species. Through their biochemical link, Vex shared images of healing taking place across distant star systems. Other Crother, drawn by word of the cure, were bringing their infected kin to predetermined meeting points. Each treatment required careful calibration, but Lily's human intuition combined with Crother wisdom proved remarkably effective. The enemy, however, hadn't given up. Their ships appeared at treatment sites, attempting to disrupt the healing process. But they found themselves facing unexpected resistance. Species that had once feared the Crother now stood alongside them, understanding at last the crucial role they played in galactic ecology. Even the Razni, their former attackers, had become unlikely allies. Their deep space sensors helped track infected Crother, while their ships protected treatment convoys. Lily observed these changes with a scientist's eye and a humanist's heart. Your presence changes others, Vex transmitted during a quiet moment between treatments. Humans bring new perspective. Fresh eyes see old truths. Lily understood. Humanity's relative youth in galactic affairs, once seen as a weakness, had become their strength. They weren't bound by ancient fears or prejudices. They could bridge gaps that older species thought permanent. The breakthrough came when they reached a massive gathering of Crother in the Horsehead Nebula. Hundreds of the creatures, both infected and healthy, had congregated in response to their call. The sight of so many of these magnificent beings in one place would have once inspired terror. Now it inspired hope. Standing on the Helix's observation deck, Lily watched as their cure was distributed through carefully modulated energy fields. The nebula itself seemed to pulse with renewed life as the Crother's natural balancing abilities were restored and amplified. We're not just saving your species, she realized, sharing the thought through their link. We're helping the galaxy remember something it had forgotten. Vex's response carried centuries of wisdom. Balance requires understanding. Understanding requires change. Change requires courage. Their enemies made one final attempt to stop them. A fleet of bioships emerged from Fold space, their weapons charged. But they faced something unprecedented. A coalition of species united in defense of the very creatures they had once feared. The battle was brief but decisive. The enemy's weapons, designed to corrupt and destroy, proved ineffective against the combined strength of multiple species working in harmony. Their bioships, confronted with overwhelming evidence of their flawed philosophy, began to break apart. As the dust settled, Lily received a transmission from Director Reynolds back at the research station. The board had reviewed their data and reached a historic decision. Earth would become a sanctuary for Crother requiring treatment, a neutral ground where the galaxy's most feared predators could find healing. They want to establish a permanent research partnership, Reynolds said, barely containing his excitement. Your work has opened up entirely new fields of xenobiology and ecological studies. Lily smiled, but her attention was on the Crother gathered around them. Through their biochemical link, she could feel their gratitude, their renewed sense of purpose. The galaxy's balance was restoring itself, stronger for having been tested. What now? She asked Vex, knowing their original mission was nearly complete. The Crother's response came with images of distant worlds, unexplored regions where balance needed to be maintained or restored. Much work remains, many bridges to build. Will you continue journey? Lily looked at her screens, filled with data about species she had once only dreamed of studying. She thought about her old lab, the isolation she had once felt, and the incredible partnership she had found in the most unexpected place. Yes, she said, both aloud and through their chemical bond. After all, someone needs to keep documenting everything we discover. The Helix's sensors detected more ships arriving. Scientists, diplomats, and researchers from across the galaxy, drawn by word of their success. Each arrival represented a new opportunity for understanding, for breaking down barriers between species. As Lily prepared to welcome them aboard, she reflected on how far they had come. She had set out to heal the galaxy's most feared creature, But in doing so, she had helped heal the galaxy itself. Fear had given way to fascination, prejudice to partnership. Vex moved beside her, its mercury eyes reflecting the starlight. Together, they had proven that the most important discoveries often came not from fear of the unknown, but from the courage to reach across boundaries and trust in the possibility of understanding. The galaxy was changing, becoming something new. And in a research station orbiting Earth, a young xenobiologist's empty lab stood as a reminder that sometimes the greatest mysteries of space weren't found in distant nebula or ancient ruins, but in the connections we forge with those we once feared most. End of story.